I recently beat Persona 5 Royal after 110 hours, 2 whole playthroughs, and spanning across an entire month. I have to say, this is one of my new favorite games of all time. Despite this game being released 5 years ago, it still holds up incredibly well. So much so that there is seemingly an infinite amount of Persona 5 themed spin-offs made. Before I started P5R, I've never touched a single thing Persona related. Closest thing I had was the fact that Joker was in Smash Ultimate. Other than that, I was going in completely blind. This experience is one of the only few games to keep the player hooked at every single hour of gameplay. The writing is amazing, the gameplay is pretty fun, the style is iconic, and I don't think I really need to explain the soundtracks, do I? I mean, just listen to it. I won't get too deep into the main story, as it would literally take hours to explain. So long story short, Joker has a criminal record because some drunk guy thought it'd be great to sue the guy for saving someone. And that somehow led to him saving the world from the Holy Grail itself. Wait, what? Hold on, I think we skipped a few parts here. The story is essentially split into sections, each accompanied by a palace, and usually a new playable character associated with it. Thank God they didn't over-rinse the formula of find an evil criminal and steal his hearts. Because if they did that more than 3 times, it would have gone pretty stale. Futama's palace is an excellent example of the Phantom Thieves going into people's palaces for a different reason. To actually save Futama from being confined to her room at all times. Her persona awakening is even different from the rest of the cast. Rather than having the persona magically spawn in and giving the persona user a giant headache, she ends up accepting it as her own. Sai's palace is also really interesting in my opinion. She's not necessarily a villain, but she still has a palace because of her distorted desires to follow her own justice. The gameplay is split into primarily 2 different halves. One half is, of course, the palace exploration and the combat, and the other half focuses on Joker living a normal life. It creates a good balance between fantasy action and slice of life. Joker could develop a good relationship with the other characters, both from the Phantom Thieves and not. There are many advantages to level up the confidants, some of which be pretty insane and overpowered. In fact, there's even DLC content that's locked behind a specific confidant, namely the school counselor Maruki. So if you want to play the 3rd semester, please prioritize his confidant levels first. Especially because Maruki has a deadline where around November time, he will leave the school. And if you don't have his confidant levels leveled up by then, you will not be able to unlock the 3rd semester. On my first playthrough, I actually completely missed the 3rd semester because I wanted to go in completely blind, and I never really cared for Maruki's character. Luckily though, I didn't really mind replaying the entire game again just to unlock the 3rd semester. Largely because I discovered the single most broken persona that was completely nuking every single boss fight I fought. So yeah, that caught about 40 hours of playtime. Aside from spending time with each of the confidants, you can also participate in other activities which can improve combat. For example, you can play darts with your allies to increase the level of your baton passes, or you can go to the jazz club on certain days to increase the stats of certain party members, and even get some new moves for them. The combat system is all turn-based. It has its own element system with weaknesses and resistances. Unlike Pokemon though, each enemy has its own unique weaknesses and resistances, some of which either don't have the former, the latter, or screw it, even both. Meaning, taking advantage of enemy weaknesses as a main strategy doesn't even work. Back to whacking people, I guess. Alright, now I'll give my opinions on every party member. Well, you kind of play as Joker, so I guess he's cool. As much as I find him transforming into a car, and later on a helicopter entertaining as hell, he's kind of a weird character in my opinion. Especially when he has that tantrum arc before we meet Haru. Also, how does he utilize a persona without even having a mask? He is dumb in the literal sense, but he has his MVP moments, especially the escape from Shido's palace, to which he gets his ass beat for no reason. Poor Ryuji. Somehow, she was the character I think I used the least, and I rotated through every single party member, including Akachi and Kasumi. I used her a lot more in the second playthrough, and yeah, she's probably one of the strongest characters kit-wise. Especially when you pair up her tier 3 move with the most broken persona in the game, turning it from a small speedrun into a mega speedrun. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about Yusuke, other than I was using his evasion skills a lot to cheese enemies. Also, I don't know why, but his all-out attack art is one of my favorites. My most used character, and the one I romanced first. She's one of my favorite characters, and it's largely due to her kit. I mean, what doesn't she do? She has pretty alright damage, she can turn your entire team into a tank, she can heal your entire team. Like, what isn't good about her kit at this point? I also just enjoy her personality in general. She is not playable, and yet she is still overpowered. Especially if you level out her confidence. Not only is she ridiculously powerful in battle, having access to AoE team focus, AoE team buffs, healing, can prevent fatal damage, and a number of other things. But she's also incredibly useful outside of battle, as her scan can allow you to speed up the exploration of mementos a lot faster. I also don't understand why people waifu her though. Haru's fate in this game is just sad. Her dad dies when she thought she changed his hearts. You unlock her confidant near the literal end of the game. And most notably, her 3 seconds of screen time in every single scene. At least she gets justice for that in Strikers, which I am trying to play right now. His character is definitely written well. His kit in battle, however, isn't. If they were going to incorporate her into the main story, I wish they went all in for it rather than duct taping her to the plotline. I could also never land any crits with her buffs, even when combining it with moves that have high crit chances. And I used her quite a lot when I could, which is barely considering she is only playable in the 3rd semester. Alright, now all the party members are done. Now I will give my opinions on the palaces. It does a very good job at being a level 1 palace. It introduces the Phantom Thieves, their motives, and the whole metaverse thing. Also, I kind of find it funny how they have to emphasize that he is an evil person at every given moment. It's not the greatest palace in the world, but Yusuke's Awakening Seed does give it bonus points for being raw as hell. Probably the worst one in my opinion, and that's because it's the least interesting of the collection. It feels long, and the boss also looks pretty stupid. What, it's a literal wasp on a giant metal piggy bank. On the other hand, one of the more interesting ones. It has largely due to the reason why we enter the palace being so different. I also like how Futama's Persona Awakening scene is just different compared to everyone else's. Okay, so imagine a brick wall, and you are tasked with breaking said wall. Except every time you try and break it, you try to dent it, you try and crack it, it repairs itself every 5 seconds. And there are also multiple layers to this wall. And each layer has its own weaknesses and resistances. And each layer is made with a tougher material than the previous. Yeah, no, fuck this boss. This is definitely the second best theme palace of the game. The stylish decoration and the overall atmosphere is done perfectly. And I also really love the idea of the roulette wheel in the boss fight. Aside from the mice puzzle, which I thought was interesting, although the tunnels are pretty easy to miss, I don't really have anything positive to say about this palace. The boss fight, just like Okumura, was annoying as hell, especially when you have to finish the battle in a 1v1 with Joker. I will be more lenient with it though, as he is the final boss of the main 7. The shock factor carries it for me. I wasn't expecting Mementos to be an actual palace in itself, but it does make sense. However, you do have to travel down to the deepest part of Mementos to do so, which is incredibly tedious to do. As for the Eldritch God himself though, it was a pretty hard boss. MVP goes to SP Adhesives. Thank you, Takumi. To nobody's surprise, this is the best palace in my opinion. Unlike the other palaces where it relates to either negative emotions or evil desires, this one takes a completely pure approach. The music is much more calm, which is the complete opposite of the more intense palace themes that we've heard previously. The color scheme is mostly white, and Maruki's whole character is completely opposite of the palace rulers we've previously fought. This one also allows you to play as Darbo Akachi. It gives us actual Kasumi lore. So now I will give my quick opinions on each of the confidants that's not a party member, since I actually maxed all the confidants on my second run, with the exception of the twins, because 1, I found out they were a confidant way too late, and 2, I found out that in order to level up their confidant levels, you need to hunt for specific personas or few specific personas and give them specific moves. And I'm incredibly lazy and don't want to do that. He's pretty awesome. Her traits are ridiculously broken, and if you romance her, you are incredibly weird. I'm like 80% sure she's supposed to be part of the Phantom Thieves. She's pretty cool though. Kinda absurd that you have to pay 100,000 yen to start a confidant, but that's also pretty funny. I'm guessing she's everyone's least favorite, and that includes me. They really made a character to reel in all the people who are looking for a specific type of woman. How is this guy relevant in any way? His gun traits are actually really good. His gun traits are also pretty good. Aside from his confidant being a requirement to play the 3rd semester, it's still worthwhile leveling him up. Her confidant's mandatory, his confidant's mandatory. His traits are really good. His character is kinda eh. And those are my thoughts on Persona 5 Royal. So overall, a 10 out of 10.